You know, sometimes things just don't match what you think. Kind of like back when we got Street Fighter 2 and it came over in the arcades and you could open up those secret characters and you were so excited and you finally got to the character and it was the boss and it was supposed to be the boss and it was not in Bison.
So does it have the real M. Bison or the fake one?
It was Balrog? What is a Balrog? It was so mislabeled. The one that looked like Mike Tyson, who was supposed to be M. Bison, already enough of a change to avoid issues. But we didn't get that in America. We got something that was sort of mislabeled. It wasn't bad, it just was kind of mislabeled. Well, today, we're going to take a look at two handhelds, which I think have swapped their names and really should be reversed. One of them we've already did an unboxing and impression, and this new one we're going to take a look at, and then we're going to compare the two. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode of our content. But let's dive in and take a look at the R40XX, both the regular and the ProMax, and find out are these names fitting. Hey, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Factor. If you're like me and the wife, you often find it hard and difficult to prepare food. And those frozen meals at the grocery store, they're frozen and not very good. So why not try Factor? In fact, I've got a big announcement. Factor now ships with 2 times, that's right, twice the amount of green beans as before. Because we know everyone loves, no, wait, I'm not a sponsor of Factor, and there were too many green beans. That's actually one of the problems. Hey, deadheads, welcome back to the channel. Or welcome to the channel for the first time, new deadheads. Today, we're going to take a look at the game console R40XX and the 40XX ProMax. So, before we decide which is the best, let's first take a look at the new contender, the R40XX ProMax. That's right, we had the R40XX, which I really liked. However, it had those goofy symbols on the front of it, but I liked it quite a bit. So can the R40XX ProMax outdo it? Well, taking a look at the box here, it's very similar to the boxes we've seen from Game Console. We have this same 4.2 inch resolution of 1024 by 768. It's a great screen, even if it's not really 4.2 inches on either of these. But nice looking box. It has that nice design on it, and it does say that it's Wi-Fi wireless, quad core, 20 emulators, Billy surfing, watching movies, and remote upgrade, whatever that means. Looking on the side, we do have our colorways, and we did get this in the pink. You know me, and I like pink. There's a lot of good colors here. There were some colors online that I wanted to try, like dual colors. They didn't have those, and those are not really on the box here, so I don't know. We'll see if those come out. Either end of it just says game console, and then it has a picture of the unit itself with some labeling for the buttons, etc. So pretty standard here. Not much difference than the box that we got with the 40XX. Let's get the handheld out of the way here. And below our tray, not a lot there. We do have our screen protector, if you can call it that. Very flimsy. We have a typical USB A to C cord here. Nothing fancy. And then we do have our manual, if you can call it that. Much like the 40XX, this is just a 2-page manual with nothing much to it. Doesn't really tell you a lot. In fact, interestingly enough, this actually has R40XXS, and it's kind of hard to know on the R40XXS, all this over here, what is the S? Why is this labeled S? Why does the manual say that when the rest of it doesn't say that? It's a Pro Max. But anyways, let's get this all put back into the box, and let's get the handheld out and take a look at it. All right, we got it out of the box, and immediately it feels very familiar, which is not a surprise. Again, this is a vertical with a bigger screen, a 4.2 4.2-inch screen, a high resolution screen that looks great. And it feels very familiar. We do have that same sort of plastic feel that we're used to seeing on the R36 game console lineup. It has a nice look to it. I would say this is more of a plum than a pink, but I think it looks pretty good overall. Holding it feels pretty nice. As always, let's start with the buttons, and yes, we have connected buttons. Now, since this is transparent, you can see it through here. These are the typical style buttons that we're used to seeing, and I would say that they're pretty much the buttons we've seen on any of these game consoles that are of any quality over the last 6 months or so. Have a good travel distance to them. They feel decent, and they're what you would expect at this price point. Moving over to the D-pad, and yes, we have the same D-pad. No surprises there. We have the same D-pad we're used to seeing, and so it does have a bit of a pivot. It's not as great as I would like to see it. It feels very standard for this sort of lineup. No surprises there. Now, moving on, we did see the XF line and the DC line bring those replaceable Ginful sticks that we love. Not here. We're still rocking the Switch sticks, which is not a terrible thing, but they will be subjected to drift over time. I know this is a budget, ultra budget handheld, but I'd really like to see the Switch sticks just go away. However, these are fine for what they are. We do have a front-facing speaker, so that's pretty nice. And then we have these 3 buttons. We have an FN button, we do have a start button, and a select button, and they're in this vertical line. I kind of like the look of it. I think it's nice. It looks on the front of it. Again, the screen is great. Going to the triggers, these are more traditional triggers. They're a little bit clicky, not as clicky as some of the other R game console lines I've seen in the past, but they seem good and adequate. They're not chunky. I like that they're pretty flat. So they're actually in a lot of ways better than some of the other ones we've seen. But overall, again, this feels super familiar. Let's go around the side, and we do have a power button and a reset button. We have on the bottom, we have a headphone jack, and we do have a single Type-C port. On the other side, we have a single TF slot with a plus and minus rocker, and then we have nothing on the top. So this only has the one SD card slot. That's a little bit of a bummer. I always prefer the dual slots. That way you can keep your ROMs safely on one card if you want to upgrade OSs. Speaking of which, this is a Rockchip 3326. We have beat this into submission. So now, in the next part of the video, I'd like to get to the whole point of the video. Should you pick this one up, or how about the one we reviewed previously, the R40XX? So we actually have the R40XX or the R40XX Pro, and that's what today's video is about. So let's talk about the two, the differences, and what I prefer. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, NYXI. NYXI has this amazing GameCube-inspired controller called the Wizard 2, and they were gracious enough to send it over for us so we could take a look. Now, first I want to say that GameCube is one of my favorite all-time systems to emulate, but we all know that Nintendo has always liked to use some of those goofy control schemes. So having a controller that more closely and naturally mimics that control scheme only makes emulation better. Have you ever found yourself trying to play something like Super Mario Sunshine on a regular Xbox type controller and you're like, man, this just isn't playing very well? Well, this solves that problem completely because it gives us those GameCube specific controls that helps you game better. And who doesn't want to game better? In fact, there's even more to it. This controller can also split apart. That's right, it can split apart and you can use it like Joy-Cons, left and right. That's even amazing because you can attach it to your Nintendo Switch. Now, if you have a Nintendo Switch 2, I want to let you know some awesome news because NYXI now has a device, an attachment that can actually help retrofit onto your new Nintendo Switch 2. And Nintendo Switch has online GameCube. It's really cool, so you can play with some of the newest technology. These controllers include things like TMR and Hall-based technology to give you the best of all the new stuff while giving you that great retro feel in the hand. make sure to hit the link in the description below because we have some great codes to help support it. And we want to thank NYXI for sending this over. Again, I have been taken back in time to nostalgia by playing some of the best GameCube games, as you can see here, on things that run Bluetooth, or you can use their adapter to even play it on original hardware or the PC, whichever you want to do. Make sure again you check out the discounts and get the best deals, and make sure you ask for that attachment so you can use it on your Nintendo Switch too. Anyways, back to the show. All right, so holding both of these in the hand, and they're fairly similar in shape and size. There's not a little big differences here. I'll start with the first. You have a more rounded bottom on the R40XX. Now, with this naming convention, you would expect the ProMax to somehow have something significantly better than the 40XX. However, hardware-wise, these two are identical. They're rocking the same Rockchip 3326, the same amount of RAM, the same Mali GPU. They're running very similar software. They have the buttons are the same quality. Some of the differences are you do have this flat black back triggers versus the slim but still curved triggers on the Pro Max. The overall quality between the two, holding them in the hands, I gotta say I prefer the 40XX. In fact, as going through and playing through both of these, I found myself wondering, why was this not the Pro Max? Because if I had to choose one between the two, even though I don't like the goofy symbols that are etched on here, I say the one here on the red is the better model. The one that's just the 40XX, not the Pro Max. However, that's not to say that the Pro Max is bad. Both of these are equally better than the generations before them, minus the sticks, which still could be those newer sticks. So I still got to knock it somewhere. I was able to successfully get Wi-Fi running up on both, so there's no difference there. The screen is identical and looks sharp. Everything about it is the same. So as I show you some gameplay here, really it's going to come down to the aesthetics between the two of these. And between the two of these for Dead Fred, I found myself wanting to pick this one up more often than this one. So I got to say, if you put it to it, I have to go with the 40XX, which really probably should be the 40XX Pro Max, and the name should be swapped. Boy, this is confusing. Now, another thing I really liked about the 40XX is just the overall contour and shape of it. While these flat triggers are a little questionable, I gotta say, overall, I still would pick this. This even has a better feeling D-pad. In testing the D-pad on both, I found that I just preferred the D-pad on the regular 40XX. It actually seems just slightly bigger, but it just seems to pivot and work better. That could be just a single quality issue here. As far as the sound goes, I do like the sound on each one of them. Now, there is a pretty significant difference here. You do have bottom firing speakers on the 40XX versus a front firing speaker on the 40XX Pro Max. That may be a significance for some. The other thing is you get the dual slots. So you have two TF slots on the 40XX, and you only have the single slot on the 40XX Pro Max. Are we beginning to see a pattern here? Why is this called the Pro Max when this has a better D-pad, it has a better feeling plastic, a better form factor, its contours are nicer, and it has two TF slots and a speaker that sounds great and a back vent that looks nice and just, yeah. And that's not to say that this is horrible, because this is not horrible. I would say if you end up with the Pro Max, it's still better than the R36S. The R36S has been outdone, finally. This is completely better, both of these. However, if you're picking one of the two, and you just hate the design on this, I think you might like playing on this better. And at the end of the day, the design is not something you're looking at while you're playing. As far as everything goes, they're going to perform up to PS1 fine. Anything above that's going to kind of struggle. You may get it running, you may not. Your mileage might vary. They're going to have some custom firmware, I hope, as these become more popular. And pricing is very similar for both of these. Again, just because it says Pro Max doesn't make it a Pro Max. Dead Fred's got to say, this is not a Pro Max. These names should have been swapped. I really prefer this. So yeah, so that's the big difference between the two. They both have a very standard CPU we're used to. They have a beautiful screen on both of them. They have hardware that's very familiar and tried and true. But again, the regular 40XX just wins out overall. It's better to hold. It's more comfortable. It's more contoured. It has that second SD slot, and I just like it better. But leave me a comment and let me know if you tried either one of these. Which do you like better? Do you hate both of them? Remember to love your hugged ones and hug your loved ones, because tomorrow is never promised. We'll see you next time with some more reviews, Deadheads. Dead Fred out.